In the past, Clinton County, Missouri was the western edge of the United States. Situated between two emerging cities, Kansas City and St. Joseph, Clinton County benefited from their growth. The Pony Express, the Gold Rush, and Western migration brought people through the county, but the population that settled here put it on the map. Plattsburg became the beef capital of the world. Lathrop was the major supplier of mules for the Boer Wars and World War I. 5 railroads crisscrossed the county, and the nation's first north-south highway ran through Cameron, Plattsburg, and Trimble on its way to Kansas City. Clinton County was home to David Rice Atchison, president for a day, James Harvey Birch, Missouri Supreme Court judge, Willis J. Wynn, president of the Cleveland Federal Reserve, and James Marshall, early leader of the Manhattan Project. Here are more family histories of Clinton County.
My name is Tracy Pincus. I was born and raised here in Plattsburg, graduating from high school in 1977. My parents are Tom and Joanne Holman. Both have passed in the last 2 years, only a few months apart. Today I'm talking about my mother's family, who were early settlers of Clinton County. My father was from Kansas City and never heard of the town of Plattsburg until he met my mom. They married in 1956 after a short engagement, bought a house in Plattsburg, built in the late 1800s for $7,000, and quickly started a family. I currently live in that home on Clay Avenue in Plattsburg. They purchased the home from the original owners, the Swans, who around 1910 to 1920 added a second story and veranda-style wraparound porch. Mom and Dad raised 4 children in the home: Jeff, myself, Sarah, and Sterling, losing little John to cancer at age 5 in 1968. My mother, Joanne, was born in 1934 on the Jackson Farm a few miles north of Plattsburg. She had 2 older brothers. Both spent their lives in Plattsburg. Sterling Jackson worked for Everett Quarries, and Carl Jackson worked for the city running our water plant. My parents were among the first group of folks who started the Clinton County Historical Society in 1969, purchasing the Riley Carmack home in 1977. Mom loved history and nature. She was a fantastic gardener specializing in native plants. You could always find my mom in a ditch somewhere digging up plants for her garden. Her gardens were toured by many groups and families over the years. Featured in many local publications. I have one here from the St. Joe News Press from 1994. Mom's parents were Mary Jo Porter, born 1909, and Charles Jackson. Both graduated from Plattsburg High. My focus today will be about my grandmother and mentor, Mary Jo. Her and Charles were divorced when my mother was a child. He left the family, and my grandmother remarried Michael McMahon in 1950. Many fond memories of Michael, who was from Ireland. We loved his accent as kids. Was a sergeant in the Army. Charles was the Clinton County assessor from 1932 to 1944. During his time as assessor, the story goes, my grandmother did most of the paperwork and assisted her husband. When they divorced, he left town, and when it was time to refile for the next election, he was not around. Many friends and relatives, including Charles's family, encouraged my grandmother to run for office. At first, she resisted. There had never been a woman assessor in the state. She did have 3 children to support on her own, so she finally agreed. She won her first election in 1944 and was the assessor until she retired in 1972. She attended many conferences in Jeff City, all Missouri assessors, and she would be the only woman. Many people ran against her over the years. They didn't stand a chance. As a child, I would often ride with her when she was assessing in the country. So much fun. She would pull up with her clipboard, walk around the farm with the owner while I would be on the lookout for other children to play with. Growing up, whenever I would meet anyone new, I would be always introduced as Mary Jo McMahon's granddaughter. She literally knew everyone in the county and what they were worth. She loved politics and was a proud Democrat, as I am today. One memory which has always stayed with me was during the election in 1976, her good friend Jerry Litton was running for the U.S. Senate. It was August and he had just won the primary. Everyone was so excited. Grandma and I were downtown Main Street watching the election results come in. My Uncle Charlie would paint the results of each township as the results came in on the window. Of course, back then it was all over the phone. All of a sudden we could tell something was wrong. And then Uncle Charlie came out and painted on the window that Jerry Litton had died in a plane crash with his family on the way to the victory party. It was a very sad time. Mary Jo was loved and respected by everyone in Clinton County. She passed in the spring of 2002, shortly after 9/11 at the age of 93. The photo of the Biggerstaff Trice reunion in 1933 is an example of how many early settlers of Clinton County were connected. My grandparents and both my uncles, Sterling and Carl, are in the photo. Mom wasn't born yet. Some of the more familiar names are Deadman, Jackson, Biggerstaff, Kilgore, Chenoweth, Ditmore, and Halfordy. This is my great-great-grandmother, Josephine Shoemaker Beard. Her twins and only boy died in the flu epidemic of 1918. Her daughter Edna died in her 20s of cancer. Only her daughter Maud had children. My grandmother, she also had a boy who died as a baby, and Vivian, who married W.T. Harbison and lived in her life in Plattsburg but was unable to have children. So what I'm saying there is my great-great-grandmother had 6 children and my grandmother was the only offspring. 3 of them died as babies, 1 of them died in her 20s, 1 of them couldn't have children, and the other one had my grandmother. So that would have been the end of the line if it wasn't for that. My great-great-great-grandparents were Mary and John Shoemaker, and I have a photo of them with their farm animals. The Porter family, I have a photo of the Porter family from 1905. My great-grandfather is the 3rd from the left, and his brother next to him, you can see, has lost his leg in the Civil War. Ananias Jackson and his 4 children, Hosey, Cora, John, and Ruby. He was born in Illinois in 1851 and moved to Plattsburg in 1863 with his parents. His first wife was Josephine Gill, who died in 1878. He was left with 2 small children, Cora and Hosey. He then remarried Eliza Jones and had 2 more children, John and Ruby. I always loved this photo because 2 of my classmates, Laurel DeFries and Michelle Newby, we all graduated in '77 here together. That photo has all of our grandparents in it. John is Laurel DeFries' grandfather, Hosey is my great-grandfather, and Cora is Michelle's great-grandmother. And of course, Ananias, their father, is all of our great-great-grandfathers. Hosey was married to Jenny King Biggerstaff, and they had 4 children, 3 girls and 1 boy, including my grandfather Charles. Growing up, I never saw my grandfather, but his youngest sister Dorothy married Charles Hoskins and were a very big part of my family life. I left Plattsburg after graduation in 1977, but returned to take care of my parents in 2009. I soon was involved in everything Plattsburg. I was president of the Clinton County Historical Society for several years and currently sit on the city council. I also manage our community courtyard and a member of the chamber. Mom would be very proud. Mom and Dad met in front of the New York Life building in Kansas City. The painting behind them was painted by Jane Howard. I have one son, Jack Pearl, who lives in Kansas City. It was an honor to talk about my family and our wonderful town of Plattsburg.